if you've got a rental property, the one thing you want to make sure you do on day one is get your proper insurance in place to protect yourself and protect the property as well. So there's a couple aspects of insurance you want to make sure you have in place. The first thing is typically called a landlord's policy. Now, if you're living in the house right now and you're converting that house that you live in, so it's your principal residence right now, let's say you're going to move out and you're going to convert it to a rental, all you need to do is call your State Farm or Farmers Insurance or whoever your insurance company is, call them, tell them you want to convert your homeowner's policy to a landlord's policy. They'll make the conversion. Typically the rates, what you pay, doesn't change a lot because a landlord's policy no longer covers the personal contents of the property. So it doesn't cover the tenant's personal property, but it changes the way that coverage is in place to cover you now if something should happen to the tenant, if a slip and fall incident should happen. So we want to have what's called a landlord's policy. Now with the landlord's policy, as I just said, we want to make sure we make that conversion, convert from a homeowner's policy to a landlord's policy. We recommend a minimum of $1 million in coverage. Now, you probably want to go higher than that, but a minimum of $1 million is what you want to have in place on that landlord's policy to give you a good solid base of coverage. The second thing you want to be aware of are what's called riders. So riders in the insurance industry are things that add on to a standard insurance policy. So a couple things you want to ask your insurance agent about as it relates to the landlord's policy. Number one is loss of rent. So if the property, let's say for example, burns down to the ground and it takes 6 months to rebuild the property, what about all that lost rent during the period of time the property is being rebuilt? Well, a standard landlord's policy should have a rider that covers loss of rent. So what that means is every month that the property sits vacant because it's being rebuilt, the insurance company is going to mail you a check every month for what the rental rate would have been as if the property had been rented. Very important to have that in place. You want to have a liability rider, meaning if the tenant hurts themselves, they slip and fall, something happens in the property and they sue you as the landlord, that liability coverage is in place. The other thing to be aware of and ask your insurance company about is the length of coverage while the property is vacant, because every insurance company has a built-in termination date if the property has been vacant for a certain amount of time. That's very, very good to be aware of. So for example, if your property is vacant, let's say 60 days, it is possible that the insurance on your property automatically lapses. So you need to be aware of that. Depending on how long it takes for you to do a turnover, if you've got extensive work on the property, ask your insurance carrier how long coverage extends during an extended vacancy. And if you're going to have an extended vacancy because maybe it's going to take you 90 days to go in and do a major rehab on a property, that's not a problem. Just call your insurance company, tell them you want to extend the coverage for an extended period of vacancy. They'll probably charge you a little bit more for that, but they'll make sure that coverage is in place. So you want to make sure that is there. The third thing that we recommend doing is an umbrella policy, a personal umbrella policy. Very affordable, but it just gives you more coverage. All it does is it takes the coverage you have in place now, and it extends that coverage to a higher dollar amount. So instead of having $1 million in coverage, now you've got maybe $2 million in coverage for a couple $100 more a year under this personal umbrella. If you're going to be a real estate investor, I really highly recommend that you look at personal umbrella policy. Very affordable, but just these three types of insurance alone will be a great foundation and starting point to ensure you have the proper coverage you need to begin or to continue investing in real estate.